The Samsung Galaxy Fold 4 is an impressive device. As a first-time foldable user and predominantly an Apple user, I'm super impressed. I know there's been quite a lot of noise about the battery on this phone, but overall I think there's a lot more positive things about this device that shouldn't be ignored. I always take tech reviews with a massive pinch of salt, and you should do too. But as a reviewer myself, I think the best way to give you a decent review is to actually put the device through some real-world scenarios. So in this video today, my son and I are going to take the Fold 4 for a spin, trying to give you a view of what it's like to use the phone whilst traveling. We're going to go to London, which is one of my favorite places to visit. And I'll be doing some light work too, using the device in between the sightseeing and having some fun. I could just drain test the battery and tell you how good that is, but that's not how people use their phones, right? You do go out, you actually make some phone calls, you take pictures, videos, you browse socials, and God forbid, you might do some work on it as well. This is the second video in this series about the Fold 4, and I know there's a new iPhone coming out in a few days, but I already made my mind up. I'm not returning this device.
I'm not leaving.
So you can expect a lot more of the Galaxy Fold 4 on this channel, with reviews, the best apps for it, accessories and comparisons. I'm Alex and I do down-to-earth tech reviews. Before we set off on the train to London, I made sure that the battery on the Fold 4 was fully charged. I charged it overnight using a wireless charger, but most days I'll probably just charge it using the cable via the USB-C charger. Especially if I'm using a case, I don't really like the idea of leaving the phone on a wireless charger with a case on, as it seems to get the phone really warm when I do that. Not just this device, but any device. And batteries really don't like heat. Given the concern a lot of people have been raising about the battery on this phone, I was probably overly cautious in this video, checking the battery on every hour. So apologies if it seems a little bit paranoid, but I know it's important to a lot of you. And yes, the Fold 4 fits just fine in my jeans pocket. I didn't mind the extra bulk. Cut that bit off. Before we got on the train, we grabbed some coffee and some drinks, and I did some quick catching up on the news, making sure I had my ticket as well for the train, paying for the car park, you know, the usual sort of commuting activities. I also made sure that the display was set to a comfortable setting, since I was going to be outdoors quite a bit, right? I didn't want to be struggling to see the display, and I don't want to cheat as well. I want to use the phone. For example, I could have turned off motion smoothness and set it to standard, which makes the refresh rate drop from 120 Hz to 60 Hz. But in my opinion, some of us buy the device because of these nice features, right? So turning them off feels a bit weird. I guess if you're in a situation when you're trying to save battery in those last few percentage points, but most days I'm actually always near a charger anyway, so I don't see the point. I also didn't use any of the power saving settings, but it's nice to know that these power saving features are there for when you need to save battery. Maybe you have a few percentage left and you're in a bit of desperate situation, been there before. On the train, I connected to the Wi-Fi they have on board. It's one of the things that these battery drain tests on YouTube sometimes don't really cover, which is the battery consumed by 4G and 5G and using Wi-Fi. Those tests, and I've done them myself, I'm not kind of criticizing them, but they tend to show the phone in a static location. Sometimes people don't even put a SIM card on the phone, which always amazes me. You know, who is out there using a phone without a SIM card? Anyway, when you're on a train or driving or simply out and about, the phone will change from mobile network antennas, sometimes, you know, different providers as well if you're abroad. And that consumes battery. All of that throughout the day will make a big difference. With the Wi-Fi on the train being quite patchy and the 4G signal on my network also being quite poor in the countryside areas, I was also using my iPhone as a backup hotspot. Again, just some real world scenarios here, because you might do that once in a while whilst traveling with friends or co-workers. You might kind of borrow each other's hotspots. My son got bored really quickly and played a couple of games on it too, which is something I do myself on the train to pass the time. Nothing too intensive at all. In the morning, I check my SimCity game for a bit. I haven't played this game for a while. It's not a very graphic intensive game by any means, but the developers did a great job here of using the full screen of the Fold, which makes the game a lot nicer to play. Quite a few game developers are taking advantage of that screen aspect ratio now. This form factor is not really that new anymore. And sorry if this sounds old news to you, but to me as a first-time Fold user, this is amazing. It's like using a tablet, but in a much lighter, much nicer to hold, just a lot more ergonomic anyway for me. I then paid a couple of bills, because that's what people do, checked some emails. It takes an hour or so to get to London from where we live, and after these first 2 hours of using the phone, the battery was at 87%. I did have my big Sony camera with me as well, but I wanted to record quite a lot of videos using the Fold 4 to show you what the quality is like. So what you're watching here was recorded on the Fold 4. if the footage you see was recorded on my iPhone or on the big camera, I'll make sure to display that on the screen here. After being a good parent and choosing water instead of a fizzy drink, we went on a short walk to Lancaster Gate near London Paddington Station, just to get on the tube, aka the London Underground. We came across this really cool chess set on the way and had a quick game. My son is getting into chess right now, so it was a bit of fun and an opportunity to test the camera on the Fold as well. The video and audio quality was pretty decent here, and as you will see later in the video, is one of my favorite features. London is extremely noisy, so this phone was doing a fantastic job at isolating my voice here. The colors here are pretty good as well. There was a bit of an issue in recording indoors, but we'll cover that later in the video. In the end, I got schooled by my 10-year-old. Checkmate, I think. All right. GG's. GG's indeed. On we went towards the tube via Sussy Gardens. From a stabilization perspective, the footage looks great. You can see here that even on the corners, there's no distortions or any crazy jitters. Very, very impressive. We finally got to the tube, and all I can say is, thank goodness video don't have a smell. It's pretty grim down there. Standard scenes in London, a bit of fun with making cone heads as well on the tube. On the central line they've got these curved windows. As well as being a tourist for the day, we had some work to do. My tenant in London moved out, so we had to go to this flat and sort it out for the next tenant to move in. So we made our way to East London to take some pictures of the place, reminisce about our time living there previously, which was great. At 10:42 the battery got down to 75%. I also took this opportunity of being indoors for a while to upload a video to YouTube. This was the only time during the day that I had to use my iPhone. Today's a video upload day, so I'm quite busy with transferring footage, transferring photos that I take for the thumbnails and things like that from my phone usually, or from my camera into the laptop. And that's the first time I really missed not using my iPhone, because AirDrop is just that much easier to use. Yes, there are replacements for Android, but it's just not, I haven't found anything that is as quick or as good as AirDrop. But it's one of those things, like it's a compromise that once you move to Android, you think about it for a while, but then you just find a way around it anyway. Yes, you do find ways around it. In a pinch like I had no time to download the Android app on my phone for the camera and set it all up, but there is an Android app for this camera, and there are many cool Android apps out there that will allow me to transfer files between the Fold and the Mac, pretty much like AirDrop. Not exactly like AirDrop, because I gotta be honest, AirDrop is a bit like black magic. It just works really well. The battery at about 11:30 was still at 73%, so I was pretty happy with that. But granted, the phone had been a bit quiet during this hour. Again, this is another real world scenario, right? Sometimes you don't use your phone every single hour of the day, but it's important to know though that even when idle, there's a lot of background activity going on, and in this case, you know, we dropped 2 to 3% in an hour just doing nothing, just literally standing idle. Alright, the video is uploaded now, so we're gonna get some lunch. Let's go. Back to the tube we went towards St Paul's Cathedral for some food and sightseeing, a bit more conehead fun. When we got to St Paul's Cathedral, I realized again how good the camera quality is, and despite me pointing the camera towards the sky, it's a bright day, this is nearly midday here, it was doing a fantastic job at exposing the image properly. And this wasn't even set to the highest quality of video, this was set to Ultra HD 4K, 30 frames per second. I took some portrait shots in one of my favorite spots in London. This is always a tricky situation in this spot because you have a very bright background usually and a lot of shade on the subject. So without lighting, you really needed a good camera. But the Fold did a great job here again, you know, lighting up my son's face, keeping a very natural look to the background. I love this location in London. I worked here for 11 years and it's such a cool place. We stopped here for lunch, and while we waited for our food, my son played a bit of online chess. Are you hungry? I'm starving. You may notice I have a case on the Fold. I am doing another video about that, but this video here is not sponsored, which reminds me, YouTube is very tricky for smaller creators like me. So if you're enjoying this video, a thumbs up goes a really long way in telling YouTube to share this video with more people. And if you like my stuff, I'm here every week with at least one, if not two, down-to-earth tech videos for you. So a sub to the channel would be amazing. I really appreciate that. As I mentioned in my previous Fold 4 video, I love the ergonomics of this device. You know, even as I'm holding it here, there's something really satisfying about folding and unfolding this device. It's the weight, it's how it feels in the hand. I just love everything about it.
Daddy.
Oh yeah, that's cool how it rolls. It's very fingerprinty, isn't it? You can see those. And yes, it's really fingerprinty. I don't have a screen protector on it, and I kind of regret removing the original one that came with it, but it feels really nice without it anyway. After a delicious lunch and dropping a small mortgage on the bill, because London, we went to this rooftop to take some shots, and man, this phone is so great at taking videos and photos. I keep going on about this, but it is true. I know they haven't given us the best Samsung camera system here, but it's plenty good for a device that really focuses on multitasking and other aspects. I really do hope that Samsung continues to develop the foldables, because this form factor makes a lot of sense to me. The camera needs a little bit more work, but as it is, it's pretty damn good. I did receive a phone call while we were on lunch, and I joined a meeting Zoom as well earlier, which I couldn't record, but the performance was great. I will be doing a separate video about using the Fold for work, multitasking and doing that sort of stuff. So I'll cover this aspect in a lot more detail there. But the short version is, I love the speakers on this for conference calls or for general, like even listening to music and gaming. And the front-facing camera is a little bit soft. Like I said, I'll cover that in a lot more detail. Basically, there are some settings in Zoom and Teams that you can fiddle with to make it a little bit better, but I need to use it a bit more, so we'll make sure to cover that, as well as a more in-depth call quality test in my next review. I know it's a minor thing, but call quality is usually something that us reviewers always forget to talk about. It is a phone after all, right? One thing with Samsung is that, with any device of Samsung, they're great at how it deals with colors, and the Fold 4 is absolutely no different here. It was able to capture some great colors and able to deal with the changing of scenes as well, which is really important, right? Whether you're changing the lighting or the scene itself, going here from a wide angle to pretty much a macro shot of these two guys here making some lovely honey, or maybe they were fighting, I'm not sure. Predominantly as an Apple user, the first thing I noticed, not just with the Fold 4, but with the S22 Ultra as well, and previously my favorite device ever, the S21 Ultra, it's not just the quality of the camera, which is great, but it's how much fun it is to use. iPhone are great devices, we can't take that away from them, but they are kind of stagnant at the moment, and their camera app is just, let's face it, it's a bit boring, right? It does take some great videos, and it does a good job at that, but I like having fun as well when I'm using the device. So I set the Fold camera to hyperlapse in this case here, and what you see on the screen is nothing amazing, but the result is really cool. It gets so addictive to do hyperlapses that after a while, all I wanted to do was hyperlapse everything. And I know this doesn't illustrate the point I was making about the iPhone, because you can sort of do that on the iPhone as well, but there's so many other modes here to choose, and I've covered this in other reviews about Android devices. I'm just a big fan of how Android in general makes it fun to use the camera app. One of my other favorites, the Pixel 6 Pro, has some really cool features as well, and it's just making the iPhone a little bit dated and disappointing in that aspect. Talking about disappointments, we crossed the Millennium Bridge, aka the Wobbly Bridge, and chased around this guy selling nuts. This is where Joseph, my son, had the first disappointment of the day, which was these caramelized peanuts and almonds. They smell amazing. Okay, £4. Let me try. But yeah, they didn't taste as good, and yeah, he wasn't a fan of them. Big Ben in London had been closed off for the last couple of years, so we wanted to go and have a look at how it looks now, and we decided to take the river boat after a quick ice cream stop at the Shakespeare Globe. These massive ducks on the Thames allow me to showcase how good the zoom works on this Fold as well. I quite like the speed of the zoom and the smoothness it does it in. Sometimes, you do zooms in some of these phones and they kind of jitter to get there. I felt that it was nice and fast, and it can add some creativity to your shots as well when you're zooming into things. While we waited for our boat, I tried the slow-mo and the super slow-mo modes. I have to say, I don't really find a lot of use for this, but yeah, you lose some pixels as well when you go to 240 frames per second, of course. But in the right lighting and the scene, this could be a really cool thing to do. On the boat, I checked in with my socials and said hello to my lovely followers on Twitter and Instagram. I'm always doing giveaways and stuff, mostly on Instagram, but yeah, and he's about to get really busy with that, so yeah, come follow me. At 4 p.m, just before we got to the Big Ben, the battery was at a slightly worrying 35% here, right? Between 2 and 4 p.m, to be fair, it was when we were really busy taking lots of photos, doing the hyperlapses and videos. But that's what people do when they go traveling, right? They have a bit of fun with their devices, which makes me feel a bit better about the whole battery consumption, because that's not how I use my phone every day, and I'm sure that's not how you use your phone every day. I do take lots of photos and videos, especially product stuff, for my social media and things like that, but nothing like today. So I think the battery is just fine. So we made it to Big Ben and took a few more photos and quick videos. And I apologize in advance for this next session, which is a bit of a vlog situation with this phone, just to give you an idea of what the recording is like and the audio quality specifically.
Really? Sure.
So this is what the audio sounds like on the Fold without any editing. There's quite a lot of noise, of course, lots of tourists here. It's very embarrassing for me as well to be doing this here, but there you go. I'm never going to see these people again in my life. But yeah, so traffic noise, lots of people talking. I don't know, let me know what you thought down in the comments, but I think it's pretty good.
Sorry about that. I've been doing this for a couple of years now, but recording myself in public still feels really, really weird. From an audio perspective though, it's, as you've heard, right? It seems to isolate your voice really well. I'm gobsmacked at how good it is. I really can't tell you how noisy it was around me, but you can imagine, right? This is one of the world's most recognizable tourist spots, right? So it's always very, very busy. Probably not important for a lot of people, but to me, this is such an underrated feature. Getting good audio on videos is so important, and if you're recording videos for Instagram, TikTok or YouTube with this device, you might not even need an additional microphone, you know? Of course, that will make it even better, but this is good enough for a lot of cases. After that, we were getting a little bit tired and decided to take a taxi to a nice street at Harrods. And this is where I noticed the first small issue with the camera. The light behind us here was not blue. I mean, not even close to blue. I took a photo with my normal camera just so you can have an idea here. I know the lighting in that place was terrible. You can also see here how flickering it was on my big camera, which is normal for this sort of cheaper LED bulbs. So it's kind of understandable that the phone did its best to deal with the white balance here, and our faces look okay actually, but the background was definitely not blue. So I'm not sure what's going on there. We look okay. In the same spot, but looking the other way, away from that background, the phone still did an amazing job and took some great shots. Close-up shots like this one look stunning too. And something else that's stunning is the display on this device. We gotta take our hats off to Samsung when it comes to displays, right? Whilst chilling here, I let my son play a game, a little bit more graphic intensive in this case here with Asphalt 9, which behaved perfectly. You know, the sound, the way it looks. One thing to note is that when you're playing games, you know, that take full advantage of that screen, the crease in the middle, you know, we've got to talk about that, right? It's almost invisible when you're playing a game. Yes, you know it's there and you feel it, but in a weird way, it's actually quite satisfying too. You know, maybe it's just me, but I like fidgeting, and you know, this is just another thing to feel and fidget with. Anyway, but yes, the display looks amazing for a game. It's awesome. We then did a bit of shopping and looked at some ridiculously expensive stuff at Harrods. And you can see here, right, changing scenes, changing lights, and the phone's still doing a great job with the videos. We then had a quick look at the amazing chocolate section at Harrods and started to make our way back to the train station. And here you can see that even in low light and recording from a moving car, the Fold 4 did a great job at keeping the footage nice and stable, no issues there. At around 7 PM when we got to the station, the battery was getting really close to the end here, and at 7:35 it did finally reach single digits. When I got home, I did a little bit more on social media, and at 9:25 PM, before I logged off for the day, the phone was finally dying at 3%. Considering the wide range of usage for this day and how much I was putting the phone through, I think it did an amazing job. You know, if you watched this far, by the way, drop me a butterfly emoji. It's the only emoji I could think of that looks like a fold, because, you know, does. But also it lets me know that you watched this far, and you are an absolute legend. I really appreciate that. YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video over here, and I also made this other playlist here that I think you're gonna like. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.